Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand off the Thunder who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
As always, we're your host, Blake, and my brother,
Brooks.
Awesome. We got a good show today. Finally some football news. We're going to start off with some Big Ten Media Day wrap up. Nebraska went today and just kind of sights and sounds. Then we're going to go into some things just in general for the college football landscape. Predictions, things like that. Good show today.
Yep, got the thesis statement out of the way. Now let's write the paper because that's what we're doing.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. Big Ten Media Day was today. Was the last 2 days. Nebraska went
2 days,
today.
yeah.
And I don't know. I was just thinking we would go away with just a couple of thoughts. Rule went, Sims went, Reimer, and Ethan Piper went. I watched all of Rule's stuff. I caught most of Jeff Sims' stuff, and I caught some clips of Reimer and Piper here and there. But for me, the biggest thing that stuck out to me wasn't anything real specific. It actually was just like the overall feel of seeing those guys in the media, meaning they just had so much unity in what they were saying. We've had regimes here that went to events like Big Ten Media Day where they speak to one reporter and then they go to the next reporter, and maybe they might say something slightly different. You know what I mean? They're not consistent in their messaging. Yeah. But with Rule and with Trev Alberts even, it was almost to the point where it's like, come on, reporters, ask these dudes some better questions, because once you've seen one interview, you kind of seen them all.
Yeah. They very much so seemed on the same page, like you said, and coached in the media like they were coached. They practiced that. So the thing that really got me, it was the sense of calm. There was just in the past couple of years, there was always a sense of a little bit of anxiety behind the scenes about things. You could see it in Scott. You could see it in the players. Like, I hope we do good this year. I'm not saying that they looked like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna do good this year. But they looked like we're doing the right things. We're on the right path. Going from there. The one thing that I took away from Rule, and I think that you're going to say that as well, is he had kind of how we did up top. He's put a thesis statement on this season, and it's bringing respect back to Nebraska. Being feared, and how do you get feared? First, you get respected. So that's his goal this year. Asked about win totals, what success means. And he gave coach speak. We don't go out to play to lose games or whatever. But he said respect, and I thought that was a great answer because he's absolutely right. Especially in the Big Ten. When we first went in there with Pelini and everything, we were still respected. We had just come off of some really great seasons, the last couple in the Big 12. Our defense was still really good. That could help us compete. And, but we were respected. The past couple of years definitely took a step down in that. But I think that being the kind of thesis statement for this season has me excited.
No, I like that. That's true. That's, respect comes before fear, right? And that's sort of like what he's indicating. You respect someone so much that ultimately it becomes, holy crap, we got to play Nebraska this weekend.
Yeah.
And that's what it used to be back in the day. And I agree with you. I'd say during the Pelini years, we were still respected. I'd say we had probably lost some of that fear, at least when you're talking about the top level of the conference. I think maybe back then, Indiana or Illinois probably had some fear when they played against us. But nonetheless, it's sort of in line with Rule's theme that he's had really the whole time he's been here, which is that I have to earn this. I have for before spring, it was the winter workouts. The winter workouts are what earn your ability to play in spring. Spring is what earns your ability to go to summer workouts. And now he's got to earn his ability to play Minnesota. I mean, and for him, it was like, he even said this multiple times, was like, when he came in, he had to earn their respect before he could coach them hard. That's really what he happened to do. He had to earn that. So, he's taken that theme that we're talking about with the program, and he started implementing it at an interpersonal level first. And so he got the relationships right. We got to respect each other. We got to be on the same page here. And he knows that one step at a time, you get all the soldiers, fall in line, and then eventually that the program is respected. And I think about that. He's got a theme that he can use and make sound good and not like coach speak, but it is speak.
Yeah.
and I don't know. I just like it a lot. He's a true professional. That was like another big takeaway. I mean, like I said, that fear line. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I have another thought after that.
No, that fear line, that fear before respected. I mean, if you watched all of Rule's interviews today, you saw him say it 4 different times. Because it, like,
hammering the point home.
Hammering the point home. And it also gave me the thought that it's sort of like, if you're a media person at this event, to me, your objective is to get the person being interviewed to say different words to you than they said to the
everybody
people.
else.
Yeah. Like, however
you
want
want that soundbite so people go on your website or read your publication.
Right. But Rule's good at really not giving them that, sort of. He's not.
At least today. Yeah. No, they were very unified, and there was definitely the media department at Nebraska. Prepared everybody really well.
They did. I was impressed with Jeff Sims as well. I was very impressed.
Were you?
With Jeff Sims. Yes.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able. I probably should have, seeing as this is a Nebraska podcast and we knew we were going to do this today. But I got caught up with work and was unable to watch that one. But another thing that really kind of stuck out to me, at least, was seeing. I saw Bielema. I saw the interim Northwestern coach, which we'll get to a little bit. Yeah. And I saw the No, I didn't see Luke Fickle. So I only saw those 2. But from what I saw from the other people, and then Rule, correct me if I'm wrong about this, if you've watched more, but he was very, he went up, he said maybe a couple sentences and then got right to the questions.
Yep.
The rest of what I saw, everyone gave a speech that was probably maybe 8 to 10 minutes long.
Yeah, it seemed like day
most.
one.
Yeah.
It seemed like day one. So each coach gets 15 minutes, and it seemed like day one most people had about a 5 to 7 minute speech prepared, and then the back half was saved for questions. Bielema went on for about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And I've watched every coach except for the ones you just wouldn't watch, to be honest. like Mike Loxley. Mike Loxley. Who's watching Mike Loxley? I don't. Nothing against Mike Loxley. Maryland's gonna be good, but not many people are watching Mike Loxley.
No.
Tom Allen, who's watching. But I did watch. I watched Ryan Walters. I watched Brett Bielema, Bert Bulimia. Sorry, I watched Ryan Day. I watched Jim Harbaugh, and I watched God. Who was the other one that I watched today? It was right before. Oh, right after Rule. Yeah, Fickle, which was like watching paint dry. But here's the thing: it's none of this. This is a media day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
None of this is a commentary on how good of a football coach they're going to be at all. I mean, it partly is because you're a leader of men, and if you can talk good, then you're probably going to be a more efficient leader of men. But Bo Pelini, think about Bo Pelini, what he would have been like at media. He was at media days a couple of years. I mean, his presentation wasn't the best. He wasn't the greatest coach in the media ever, but his teams played pretty decently.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with that being said, the coach besides Rule that I was most impressed with was Brett Bielema. I actually really liked his 15-minute thing up there in front of everybody. I thought he did a really good job. And it seems like he's sort of finally come to the, like, I'm done with I'm here at Illinois now. This is like where I am for the long haul. That seems like where he is, which is a little bit of a scary prospect. To be honest,
it is, because he's
be
a decent
team.
football coach. Do I think that he's ever going to lead them to a national title?
No,
I do not. But they are going to be competitive, and they're going to have respect when you play them. With him
respect,
as the coach,
exactly.
He's going to have that respect. He's going to command it. I mean, he's gotten the best of us. I mean, I remember like the only time we were in a Big Ten championship game, his team kicked the crap out of a good Husker team. So
because they do the basics really good. Brett Bielema teams do the basics really good, especially when you're talking about Big Ten style of football. His front sevens are always going to be good. His offensive lines are always going to be good. And he's proven that it can be that way at Illinois too. So I was impressed with him. But overall, you just got to give it to the Big Ten. I mean, the pageantry of the weekend. Our conference looks good. Like you watch all the other media days, like they did fine, but like then you look at the Big Ten media day and it's like, oh wow, okay, this is a high level professional organization.
I really liked the I mean, just in general, like LED screens for the presentation and stuff that have like just progressed in such a way that it looks really cool that like they just have their like branding that of the day for the Big Ten or whatever, and then it just switches for coach to coach, and it's like in past years, like I'm talking about like maybe like 5 years ago, maybe they would have like different stages set up. I just liked that. It was just like Nebraska.
And 20 years ago, they probably had two of those big screens from back in the day, just on either side of the coach with the big speaker as the stand.
Looking like Friday Night Lights pep rally.
Ice Cube comes up on stage.
It's funny, but no, you're right. It looked really, really crisp and clean, and I enjoyed it.
SEC very much in line as well. I have to say, I watched their media days too. I mean, very much.
Where's the money?
Obvious. Yeah, it's very much obvious who has the money in college football just when you watch media day. But yeah, so speaking of who has the money in college football, I suppose that's a decent little. Do we have a banner for it? No, we don't. But I'll create one because I'm about to talk about Colorado. Just announced today.
Oh, you didn't want to talk about any other coach at the media? Maybe one that looked like he had a gun to his head, and maybe get that out of the way.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. We're still on media days. Let's stick to media days. You're right.
Let's start with this. That happened since the last time we were here. At this point in the cycle, it's old news.
Yes.
But so we'll Pat Fitzgerald gone. There's nothing that we're going to say that nobody else has before. It is what it is. I agree with the school. But
I don't.
The inner
you could have predicted that. Come on.
Yeah, I could have predicted that. But the interim coach, it was his last name's Braun. It's
David Braun.
David Braun. I
Yeah.
watched his, and I feel bad for the guy. He would be one of those things, the coaches that would have probably benefited from not talking too long, because he literally looked like he kept having this look like to his left right here, like somebody was literally off stage, like had him down scope and say, don't say anything. Don't say anything. It was just like he would like he was trying to avoid eye contact. I felt really bad for him, but it looked like he had a gun to his head.
Man, with the situation, they should not have put him in that situation.
They should have said we're skipping it this year.
Yeah, no, I don't think they should have done that, because that's not what you do. You're a major football organization in the Big Ten. You have to represent. But they should have sent a leader in their athletic program, whoever it is, athletic director, president, whoever is not about to be investigated. Whoever has no involvement and is about to not be investigated. Look, you could send a booster. I mean, you could send somebody who you want to represent the program. It doesn't matter who it is. You could send your best radio guy, you know what I mean? And who's really well trained in media. But you need to send somebody who has leadership in the program. And,
What was that quarterback they had a while ago? It was Thorson?
Peyton Thorson?
Clayton?
Peyton
Thorson? Peyton Thorson?
Peyton Thorne plays for Michigan State. Clayton Thorson.
Clayton Thorson? Yeah, I think that's right.
Did we
but
just
anyways,
make up a name?
no. His last name is Thorson. I remember because he was on the Eagles for a little bit.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, they could have sent him out. I mean, I don't even know if he's still playing in the league, but he has, whatever. He was on their championship team.
It just wasn't a good look to me. It wasn't.
No. It would have probably been better sending Fitz out there and just making him answer for his crimes.
Not even any association with the school.
Yeah, just like you're doing this.
He would have had to hire Megan to get his own branding up on those LED screens.
Yeah. Sure. I did want to touch on that first.
Yeah, but that's a big shift. I mean, that's a big shift in the Big Ten. I mean, like Fitz was a mainstay. He was a mainstay. I never even, to be quite frank, before Nebraska had joined the Big Ten, if you asked me who Pat Fitzgerald was, I would not have been able to tell you. But once we were in the Big Ten and you have to play Northwestern every year, Pat Fitzgerald earns your respect, because even if you're going to beat him, it's going to be a hard game, especially for us as it has been. Yeah. I mean, even Ohio State though, like every once in a while, Northwestern will give them some trouble.
Yeah.
And so, he was a mainstay at their school. So that's a big power shift in the Big Ten. As far as, who's going to be that next household name who's been here for 20 years? Well, it looks like it's Kirk Ferentz, and that's it. But he's not like a lovable figure like Fitzgerald was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, a year and a half ago, I had brought up. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I didn't realize about him, when the interim coach, he got hired. Dude, he got hired in January.
Yeah.
He hasn't been there, and he got that position. Probably because he wasn't there for any of that, and that's why.
Mm-hmm. That is why.
That's why. But dude, you got hired as a defensive coordinator in January, and then you're a head football coach after a rough couple of weeks.
When the shoe drops on the class action lawsuit that will likely be coming, you don't want your interim coach wrapped up in it midway through the season. So. That's a big shift. Yeah. I was thinking about a year and a half ago. Remember, I brought up as just like a jab. I was like, while we were looking for a coach, I was like, what if we hired Fitzgerald? He knows the Big Ten,
Yeah. That's funny.
Dang, man. Nothing ages well on this show, by the way.
No.
If this is your first time here, these shows age horribly.
Yeah, it's because we're professionals at being unprofessional.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get to one more piece of scandal that I want to talk about before we move on to other topics. PJ Fleck is maybe PJ.
He got flecked.
Yeah, so he got flecked.
He got flecked. He didn't have enough fleck dollars, and it came back to bite him in
he couldn't row away fast enough, for sure.
It came back to fleck him in the ass.
It's not a gentle stream he's rowing down anymore, for sure. But yeah, so what do you think about this? Just in general, this came out in the last maybe day or so.
Okay, so I think I'm going to bring back up Northwestern, but I think it's relevant because my opinion on that situation is just wait and see. That's all my opinion on that situation is. Like, we've all jumped to conclusions. You know what I mean? People are saying this, other people are saying that, and a dude lost his job now, and now everyone's under investigation. And it's just like, dang, where was the due process in this situation? That's all I have to say about that. I mean, I'm sure stuff went on. I'm sure it did. I mean,
I was there with you until about a week after the initial one. The receipts. There were some receipts.
Supposed receipts, alleged receipts. They haven't really been released yet. These are cool. They're pictures that are supposedly out there of whiteboards that have things on them. Yeah. Anyway, my point being, like, due process. And now we're here with the PJ Fleck thing. And I mean, the funny thing is, I read through the whole list of allegations, and basically, like, you can summarize them in this one sentence. They complained that PJ Fleck is weird and that football is hard.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's like PJ Fleck is kind of a dick. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, but he is
kinda hard
weird though.
sometimes.
What a weirdo! If any of this stuff is true, like
It is,
black
yeah.
bucks. So one of the allegations being that they had a jar, like a swear jar, or like kindergarten type stuff, where they had a jar and you would get a certain amount of Fleck dollars or Fleck coins or whatever it was, and if you had enough banked in the bank, in the Fleck bank, the flank, then you would be able to avoid punishments from certain team rules. The one that they chose to point out in the article being the drug policy. So if you fail a drug test, then you have 4 Fleck dollars.
Yeah.
Failed drug test is 3, so you still have 1 left over.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think the thing that he might get in actual trouble for, apart because he's a dick. Don't play there. College kids have a choice where they play. Really,
they do.
The good ones, at least. Like, you have another offer, you don't have to go there. Especially with the transfer portal, dude. But I think the biggest thing that I read was the allegation about trying to make people come back early and forging like injury reports.
I didn't hear about any of this.
Yeah, so apparently, there was a couple instances of him kind of finagling with the health of a couple players that were on the verge, but making them go back early and like against the wishes of some other people. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But if that
sounds like something that happens at every place.
Oh, it 100% does. Like rub some dirt on it, get back out there. But in today's day and age, especially with some stuff like concussion protocol and some stuff you just don't want to mess around with, you should lean on, your health and training staff to be able to make that determination, and the kid. So,
can I also say this? One of my least favorite phrases
in
this day and age is this day and age.
This day and
because
age.
What are we implying? We're implying that everyone's pansies now. That's what we're implying. And that's, look, if you're at Northwestern and Coach Fitzgerald, Papa Shrek over there asks you to get into the car wash, he's paying for your education. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Jokes. But seriously, there is an element of truth, like where it's like, there's rights of these are organizations where there are tiers. You walk in and there's a totem pole because you're either a senior, a sophomore, junior, freshman.
Yeah.
And so this is just the natural human thing, like at a lot of places. But my point being that, man, we have gone a little bit soft. Football is not a game for people who have gone soft. And I didn't want to be the one sitting here sounding like I'm defending PJ Fleck's football program, because look, PJ Fleck is weird. Like that's all I'll say about it. He's weird.
No, he is. He's
all the 100%. Stuff that came out is weird as hell. And you know what's funny? Oh, the biggest one, the one that has everyone talking about. Okay, so there's 2 of them. One that if you're asked in the Minnesota building, how are you? You have to answer, I'm elite. You're not allowed to say good. I'm elite. That's what you have to say. And then the other one is whenever PJ Fleck enters a room, they have to clap. they all have to clap. And there's been stories and instances where PJ entered the room, the clap wasn't good enough, and so he left and came back in and waited for them to clap harder.
Kind of sounds like Michael Scott.
No, honestly, that's a great comparison.
Yeah. I've always kind of thought of like that whole row the boat thing as something Michael Scott would do to try to, make people play better.
Look, even in the stuff they release and show to the public and to the media is cringe, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff that's happening behind closed doors is even more cringe.
Yeah.
So none of it's surprising. Let's just get that out there. None of it surprises me at all, and it all sounds very feasible.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fleck is a douche nozzle. He just is.
He is. Yeah. But he's a decent football coach, so.
Yes, he's a decent coach. Yes, but he is a douche nozzle. We'll see if anything comes from it. Okay, big news happened yesterday. yesterday. Colorado has decided to go to the Big 12. They're going to be joining the Big 12 in 2024. One of the big asterisks I saw on this was they're getting a full media share too. Where it's crazy because like U of H is joining the Big 12. I think it's going to take them 2 or 3 years, maybe in year 2, maybe in year 3. Anyway, they have like a scaled option where U of H, BYU, all those teams got
depending on how good they do, probably.
No. It's just how long they're in the league. They're going to eventually get a full share. It just is going to take a couple years. That was their group of 5 clause. You're coming from a group of 5, so you need to bring your own value. Right. Colorado is getting a full media share right off the bat. So first of all, as much as it pains me to say it, props to Colorado's administration because I think this is a really good decision, and they're going to make more money. It's a good business decision, and they needed it. So props to them. I'm actually happy to see Colorado playing some of the same teams we're used to seeing them play, rather than being over there in a league where it's dying. Look, on its face, it makes logical sense geographically because it's like Colorado. You get out there, it feels there's a Western vibe, but football-wise, CU has always been playing Midwest teams and Southern teams.
It's because it's in the Midwest.
So they need to be over there. So I'm happy about that. One question I will ask is, do you think that this happens without Prime?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not. No, they won't. He is a big TV draw. They're getting him, and Colorado took advantage of that because if he face plants this year and then face plants the year after that and he's gone because guess what? 2 losing seasons and he's still gone. I think they used this as be like, okay, we need it out of the Pac-12. We're losing USC and UCLA, and then the rest of the teams are like, this conference is dying. We need to go somewhere that is obviously building, and Big 12 did bring it in BYU, UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati. So we need to go to one that has. And we need to go somewhere that has the money and has the longevity for the future, at least as we can see it now. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it does not happen without Prime. And good, like you said, it does pay me a little bit, but it is good on them. It's a good move, and I'm glad they were able to pull it off too, because he's the only thing they have going for him right now in terms of stock.
Well, yeah, not only that, but think about this. This gives Prime what he needs. Like I'm not rooting against Prime. I'm rooting against Colorado because I don't like Colorado Nebraska fans. If Prime is at any other school, I would think of it as a fun thing to pay attention to, and I'm actually sort of rooting for him. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. But I think that the only thing at Colorado that could have potentially held him back before, especially with recruiting, is the fact that they were in the Pac-12. Because that's just even if you're at even if you're at like Oregon, the epicenter of Nike, it's hard to recruit these days because you have to sell the Pac-12. Yeah. And they might not have to for much longer, but we'll get to that.
And you don't have Southern California to use as a look how nice it is here.
Right.
It's Oregon and it's Washington.
Yeah.
Which is pretty, but like kids, don't want to go to cold sometimes. So.
Right. I'll just say this. I'm interested to see where Prime takes this because now that they're going to the Big 12, I really think he sort of has the runway set up for him to maybe take Colorado to be a bit of a spoiler in that 12-team playoff. Let's just put it that way. I don't think they'll ever be like a perennial top 5 team under anybody. And but I do think they could play spoiler and be a 10-2, 11-1 team every year.
You do forget though, Colorado in the past, they were a top 10 team, like
top 10. But there's levels to this, like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and then
so you're saying
Michigan,
that they can't get there.
Else. Yeah.
So they can't get to.
No.
Yeah. No. Okay. I agree with you then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like because there's 3 defined tiers to college football teams. Forget about Power 5. Forget about Group of 5. There's teams that are like, they're all right. There's teams that are really good to pretty good to really good. And that goes from probably like the top 50 to like maybe the 5th best team, straight up.
Yeah.
And then there's 4 teams that are, you could even argue that it's Ohio State, Michigan, and then Georgia, Alabama, just because of the record. Look at how many titles. I mean, so yeah, so I don't know. I don't think they'll ever be that, but I am interested to see where Prime takes Colorado. Let's just put it that way. I'm very interested in that. And now we're going to have them second game of the year, and holy crap, here we go. Like, very excited for that game, but we'll see.
So moving on from there, I'm excited to see that as well. We'll see. But moving on from there, I think a good place to go with it is over here. And because this is something that I don't think is going to take too much time, because I think there's a runaway, and if he would have to have a complete collapse to not win. But yeah, go ahead with yours first, and then I'll give mine.
Okay, I mean, we'll mention this name first so that neither of us pick it, because the person you just talked about, Caleb Williams, correct?
Yeah.
So Caleb Williams is the obvious favorite because I mean, he's really good. He's a freak of nature, and he's on a really good team. So yeah, my pick would probably be somebody like, and it's going to be a dark horse pick, somebody
Jeff
like
Sims.
Devin Brown. Do you know who Devin Brown is?
Devin Brown.
Devin Brown is in a battle for quarterback of Ohio State right now. And there's some rumblings, because I watch a show called Menace to Sports, where a former Ohio State coach runs the podcast. And so he has ears inside of Ohio State's training facility, and he talks about how he would be very surprised if Devin Brown's not the starting quarterback, and he thinks that he's just Ohio State's next thing. So it wouldn't shock me if somebody like Devin Brown came out of nowhere and then all of a sudden is this Heisman front runner this year. So that's probably my pick, is Devin Brown. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Do you have another one or nah?
I mean, if I had to pick another one, I mean, you just got to go quarterback, don't you? That's really what you got to do these days, because, maybe I could maybe see someone like, if I'm not picking Caleb Williams, maybe Michael Penix Jr. over there at Washington. He's a really good quarterback. If they have a really successful year, I really believe in their coach. I think Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach. Maybe if Texas has the year they think they're going to have, maybe Quinn Ewers should throw him in there.
That was going to be my choice.
Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah, so just take a time back, like a travel back in time to the Alabama game last year. They beat Alabama if he doesn't get hurt that game.
Totally and then, agree with that.
And
totally.
They were
I watched it again the other day.
I know. They were a completely different team when he went down. And even so, like after that, even when he came back, he wasn't really the same, still banged up. If he is healthy and stays that way, especially within the Big 12, I think he has a big shot, because he also has the media on his side. They love him.
Yep. Totally right about that.
That plays a big part in it. Like I was listening to, it was The Herd the other day, and I don't remember the dude's name. I can see
Colin Cowherd.
No. No, Joe Klatt.
Joe Klatt, yeah. Joe Klatt.
And
he's the best in the biz, man.
I know, but he had a take that I don't agree with. He was saying that Caleb Williams is better than Patrick Mahomes. He said he is a more refined Patrick Mahomes. He's like, Patrick Mahomes, he's like, he's great, he's the best. But he's very good, but he's still unrefined. Caleb Williams is a more refined Patrick Mahomes. And I'm just like, that is he's a very good, but he's played in college. He's a college quarterback.
Yes.
Agreed. He's a college quarterback.
Like watch the documentary Quarterback. Like Matt Rule was talking about this today. That's why I was mentioning it. Watch the documentary Quarterback. The documentary Quarterback basically proves that being a quarterback, there's definitely skill involved. But it is much more to do with what's between your ears and your feel of the game, your brain and your feel of the game. And so while I do understand where Joel Klatt is coming from, what he's really trying to say is that Caleb Williams has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
That's really at the core of what he's trying to say, is that he's trying to illustrate how much freaking potential this guy has. Because he does. Skill-wise, raw skill set, he might be right. But Patrick Mahomes has an insane skill set, first of all, and then he's proven to have an insane resolve, mental toughness, understanding of the game, a creativeness, and an unpredictability.
Yeah.
And so, it takes a lot to get there.
You could say that. And you know who else was an absolutely amazing college quarterback that they thought was going to translate really well at the time? Marcus Mariota.
Fair.
Marcus Mariota was balls to the wall. He was Caleb Williams back then. Like his name was on everybody's tongue. You could see how he played. He was and he had like a decent year or two in the league, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's a backup now. He's a backup for Jalen Hurts.
Perennial backup at this point.
So it's hard to say. I'm not going to take anything away from him because I do, as I mentioned at the top, I think he's going to be the runaway favorite, and he would have to have a really step down to lose. But
one more name who it would be a crime if we failed to mention it, but I just don't like Brian Kelly, so I don't want to talk about LSU.
Okay.
But Jalen, oh my gosh, not Jalen Daniels. That's the guy at Kansas. Oh my God. It's the starting quarterback for LSU. Starting QB for LSU. It's Jaden Daniels. Okay. So give me a break on that one. Okay. Right. Jalen Daniels is the one that's at Kansas, who also actually could be thrown in the conversation. But Jaden Daniels over at LSU, he's really good, man. He's really good. And what Brian Kelly is he's the ultimate organizer. That's really what I've come to know, and what media people talk about is that he's just an insanely good organizer. And we've talked about this with LSU. They're a weird program because they could go 5-7 and then all of a sudden win the national title the next year. Just because of where they are in the SEC and with their talent and with the financial backing that they have, their fan support, all the stuff. And so when you throw an organizer like Brian Kelly in there, right? What was the talk last year? He goes over to LSU, he gets hired, and everyone's talking about how he's not a good fit. Oh, he's not a good fit. And then he goes 10-2 and wins the SEC West in his first year. First year. And they weren't good before that. They had real organizational issues towards the latter half of the Orgeron tenure. So, Jaden Daniels, the starting quarterback for LSU, I believe needs to be mentioned in this conversation as well.
All right.
But
no, that's a good name. No, you're right. And I don't see. It's funny though. Like, look at the schools that those people are playing for, and we didn't mention anybody from Georgia or Alabama because those are kind of like unknowns at this point, but they're going to be part of the conversation because those teams are going to be good.
Yeah, they are. They are going to be good. I mean, and you know what just saddens me, because I there's no Kool-Aid in this segment because we didn't pick anybody from Nebraska either.
No, and why would we?
Because Jeff Sims.
I think after watching a lot of his tape, I think that he is a lot better than I initially gave him credit for. Especially playing on that Georgia Tech team that didn't really play into his skill set all that much. So I think that, and he's Rule's guy. He went out and got him, but he's
the dark horse. He's a big dark. I mean, if you're a general college football fan looking at the landscape, I could see 1 out of 100 people looking around and being like, "Oh, Jeff Sims, he's my dark horse pick." So there's that we got to mention as well. But there's other college football topics. Let's do this.
Speaking of dark horses, let's go with this one. This is something that we kind of came up with, as we're ramping up to the season here. The name of the game is, literally picking a dark horse from each Power 5 conference. Not even to say that they're going. Are we going to say that they're going to win? Or just
it's a dark horse pick to win. Like, who could win? You're not locking it in. We're not putting money on this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I just didn't know if we were going to go, because there's always, like Kansas last year, there's always surprises to teams that are way more competitive than they were the year before. So, okay. So, dark horse to win.
Let's go by conference, and we'll start with the most boring to me, probably. The
Pac-12.
ACC. The ACC, no, the Pac-12, it just has bad media deals. Their actual conference, they have pretty good teams. You look at the top 5 quarterbacks
True.
in the Pac-12. It's actually
Oregon.
pretty insane.
True.
Bo
Okay.
Nix, Cam
Yeah.
Rising. Matter of fact, let's do Pac-12. We'll do ACC later. We're already talking about it. Bo
All right.
Nix, Cam Rising, Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams, DJ Uiagalelei. I mean, I could go Shedeur Sanders if he's all the hype that people are talking about. So, you look at their teams, the Pac-12 is actually on the field is actually going to be a really interesting conference this year. That's the irony of the whole situation.
True.
Yeah, and there's favorites. You know, Utah would be considered a favorite. USC is definitely the favorite. Washington
then always Oregon.
Washington and Oregon are up there, and they'll always be in the mix. So besides those 4 teams, because none of those would be considered a dark horse.
No.
Who would you pick? For me, I can go first if you'd like.
UCLA.
Go ahead.
UCLA. Because unlike the Scott Frost era, and I say that because Chip Kelly is, Scott Frost was one of his guys. But unlike that, it kind of seems like they're starting to click. And he's kind of adapted as a coach. He's had a couple of classes now to get recruiting there. They're starting to be, look at last year. They were competitive, and they were, did they go 7-0 before losing a game? They went really far into the season before losing.
Their quarterback's good.
Yeah,
good. Is he still there?
I believe so, yeah. So they have a good amount of returning talent. And I just think that in general, they're going to take another step forward. There you go. I think they're going to take another.
Out.
Yeah, I think they're going to take another step forward. And I still think Chip Kelly's a good coach. He had to adapt his system and what he was coaching because everybody figured it out and everybody else started to use what he was coaching and came up with. So I think that once he's found that kind of a good hybrid of what he used to do with some new stuff, and I just think they're going to take a step forward, especially in that conference. It's all up in the air. And I think they're going to really carry that momentum into here.
Dante Moore, that's going to be their starting quarterback. Dante Moore, he's a freshman actually, but he was like their 5-star headline. UCLA pays quarterback $6 million. He's that guy. Yeah. So they went 9-4 last year. This is Chip Kelly's 6th year at UCLA. Wow, it does not seem like it's been 6 years.
He got hired the same year Frost did.
Let's look at schedule. Schedule's everything. So you got Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, NC Central. That's their out of conference. That's a good out of conference.
Yep.
Then they play at Utah as their first conference game.
Yeah.
At Utah. Then they have Washington State at home. Then they go at Oregon State. Spoiler. Give me a second. Then they go at Stanford. They have Colorado at home, at Arizona State at home, at USC, and then Cal at home. So Utah and at USC. Those are the tough games for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so UCLA, interesting pick. That is a fringe dark horse because they're probably like the 5th best team. They'd probably be picked like 5th right now in the Pac-12. But I'll give it to you. That is
but still,
horse, total dark
if
horse.
you say UCLA, I'm going to pick UCLA. That's a prediction. So
yes. Okay, so let me find my team that I'm predicting, which is the Oregon State Beavers. I'm predicting the Oregon State, not predicting, but my dark horse for the Pac-12 to possibly win the conference is the Oregon State Beavers. Their head coach, is Scott Barnes. Their head coach is Scott Barnes. Their head coach is Jonathan Smith. Sorry, I'm on Wikipedia. His name was right. Jonathan Smith. They were really good last year. They had a 10-win season last year. And their biggest problem was they had average quarterback play. So now they have DJ Uiagalelei, who was in a system at Clemson that has come under a lot of fire as far as offensively because, Clemson hired a new offensive coordinator. They needed to. They're an elite team. When elite teams go out and hire new coordinators, it's because there's a problem that they need to fix.
Yep.
So they hired a new coordinator. So that's an indicator to me that as much he wasn't the only problem with that system.
No.
So I think at its core, DJ Uiagalelei is still a talented quarterback. I think he's on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Uiagalelei doesn't sound like an Alabama or a Clemson quarterback. It sounds like an Oregon, USC, one of those types of quarterback. So I'm just very interested. They have a guy who's a former 5-star starting quarterback, and everyone's forgetting they were a 10-win team last year.
Yeah.
But they're not picked higher than like 7 or 6. So
yeah,
they're an interesting team to watch.
I did think about them too. But
they play Utah at home. They get Washington at home. Their hardest road games are at Colorado and at Oregon. Out of conference, UC Davis, San Diego State, San Jose State. So like we're not talking about the craziest schedule in the world if they're a good team. But yeah, so Pac-12. You picked UCLA. I picked Oregon State. So I guess we could go all the way across the country to the ACC next.
ACC, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
we'll do ACC.
That conversation is not going to be as
robust.
I
have to level with everybody who watches. The ACC is my least favorite conference. It is everyone talks about how bad the Pac-12 is, but it's just because it's late. Like the games come on very late. Yeah. They're not bad. Like I promised, the games are actually relatively entertaining. The ACC, on the other hand, is like 3 or 4 teams, and then the rest of the conference.
Yeah.
So let me stipulate: the only team that I'm not calling a dark horse for the ACC is Clemson, because everyone else in that conference really is sort of a dark horse.
Yeah.
You could maybe argue Florida State, but they're really just now back on the come up. So
yeah.
So you could go ahead and go first if you like.
Shit. I mean, speaking of,
do you want
Florida State.
First? Okay, there you go. Perfect.
Because they've started to get competitive again. But I don't think anybody is looking at them and saying, you know what, they're really competitors this year. They are going to really win a lot of games and going to push Clemson to get the championship. I don't think anybody is looking at them that way. I just think they're looking at them as being competitive generally, and having the sequential building blocks to take their game a step up. So I think that they're going to not necessarily surprise people, but they're going to keep going on the trajectory that they've been going on. So
yeah. So Florida State, let me give you a little breakdown on Florida State. So Mike Norvell is in his second year at head coach at Florida State. Their starting quarterback is Jordan Travis. He's really good. He's a good quarterback. He's mobile enough to get the job done. He's not necessarily a running quarterback, but he can run. And he's really got a very quick release. The other guy is Jared Verse. Jared Verse, if you remember, actually was the number 1 rush edge in the transfer portal class, where O'Shawn was number 2. So Jared Verse came in last year for Florida State and really lit the world on fire. And so he's back. And then they got Trey Benson, who's their running back. Yeah, they're set. They have 8 returning starters on offense, 9 returning starters on defense, and they went 10-3 last year. And so it's a good pick. And let's look at their schedule. So first game of the year, neutral site, LSU. That's going to be the hardest one. I mean, and I'll be glued to that game. That's going to be must-see TV. And they go at Clemson. That's a tough road game. And they go at Florida, the last game of the year. Ooh. That's the classic Florida State game. Yeah. So that's their away games, their hardest away games. And then they got Miami at home. They got Duke. That's a decent team these days at home. And they got Syracuse, which is also a decent team these days at home. Virginia Tech at home as well. So for Florida State, that's a decent schedule. I think they could really get it done. So your pick being Florida State. So my pick is Miami, because Miami is just the type of school that they're a little bit like LSU to me, except they haven't proven the back end of that. But my point being, I feel like Miami is really the type of team that could probably go 5-7, and then the next year everything aligns right. They find all kinds of talent, and then they're a national championship contender. Now, that hasn't happened in a long time. but it doesn't mean it can't happen. We are Nebraska fans. That is our thesis statement. Just because it has not happened in a long time doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just think Miami is a program that's poised. They have 9 starters returning on offense and 10 starters returning on defense. And you got Mario Cristobal in his second year down there. Cristobal, I believe, was a Saban disciple. Wasn't Cristobal a Saban disciple? I believe he was.
Sounds right.
Yeah, but if he's not, I apologize. Starting quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. He's been spotty, but he has a lot of skill set. That's all I see that's notable that I would be able to talk about player wise. But let's look at schedules. So they get A&M at home the second game of the year. First game of the year is Miami of Ohio. They get A&M at home the second game of the year. They get. Let's see. Wow, that is a very easy schedule. Holy moly. Okay, so they play at Florida State. That's their hardest game, is at Florida State. So they got Miami of Ohio, Texas A&M, Bethune-Cookman, at Temple, Georgia Tech at home, North Carolina, Clemson, Virginia, NC State, Florida State, Louisville, Boston College.
Oh, wow.
Like that to me right there. They went 5-7 last year. Okay, I know they went 5-7 last year. But because of what I just explained about their program, and then you hear that schedule, they got headroom to get a lot of momentum leading up to that Florida State game. So they are a good pick for dark horse of the ACC. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to
Big 12.
Big 12. Okay, cool.
Big 12. Let's go. I haven't been following a lot about the Big 12 except for because I think just in general the consensus is like the new teams there, so they're getting a lot of press coverage. And I don't even know if this would be considered a dark horse or not, because they were in the championship game last year, but they had a lot of attrition. And I'm going to go with Kansas State.
Okay.
Because Kansas State did lose a lot of really good players. Most of the game breaker, Deuce, he's gone. Yes. He single-handedly carried that team sometimes last year, especially after Adrian went down. Yeah. He made plays when they needed to. He kept them in competing with Alabama for a long time in that game before it got broken open. So I think that Kleiman is a great coach, not a good coach. He's a great coach.
Agreed.
And he's what in his is it 4th year now?
I'm not 100% sure about that. That's the wrong question to ask me.
Well, okay.
With the guy with Phil Stills right in front of him.
Yeah, that's why I was asking you.
Do you know what this magazine looks like? It's insane.
Yes.
I need reading glasses to read it.
Yeah. So I believe it sounds right that he's in his 4th year. It might be 3rd, but either way. He's a great coach, and I think he set up a culture for success there. What does their schedule look like? Because I'm just literally I don't have that little encyclopedia.
He got hired in 2019. Sorry, he got hired in 2019. So
okay.
This is his 4th year.
4th year, yeah. Okay, I was right.
Yeah,
I was right. So what does their schedule look like?
So let me give you a little breakdown. So they went 10-4 last year. They have 8 returning starters on offense and only 5 returning starters on defense. So that's the big question mark for Kansas State is their defense. And they got Will Howard returning at quarterback, and he was a big bright spot for them last year when Adrian went down.
Absolutely.
And this is, again, no offense to Adrian. We like Adrian Martinez on this program, okay?
Yeah.
But Adrian went down, and we were all excited because he had just beat Oklahoma and all this stuff, and he was having his year. But he went down. And after about 2 or 3 quarters of play, nobody really asked where Adrian was for the rest of the year, pretty much. And again, that's not against Adrian, but Will Howard played really good. Like they didn't lose anything. If anything, they maybe gained something because Will Howard is a good passer. But yeah, so 8 returning starters on offense, 5 on defense. Let's look at their schedule. So Southeast Missouri, I believe that is SEMO. That's what it says in all caps. SEMO. Southeast Missouri, I believe, first game of the year at home. Then Troy at Missouri. So that's an out-of-conference game, remember. It's hard to remember things like that. At Missouri. Then they play UCF at home. And then they go at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech, TCU at home, Houston at home, which is their homecoming game, at Texas, Baylor at home, at Kansas, Iowa State at home. So they go at Texas, at Oklahoma State, at Texas Tech, at Kansas, at Missouri. Those are all their away games.
Wow, that's a
tough
rough
schedule. That's a tough
schedule.
That's a very tough schedule. Yeah, but that's a good pick. I mean, I could see them being good again. It's the Kleiman factor for me when you look at when you're talking about K-State.
Yeah.
I just have a lot of respect for Chris Kleiman. If the announcement had came the day before the Iowa game last year that Nebraska had hired Chris Kleiman, I would not have been mad. I would have been very happy.
Yeah.
I think we both probably were on the same page with that. We would have been very happy.
That was one of the names we were throwing out.
It was.
It was.
He was
him
part of the
and,
conversation for a
Leipold,
long time.
Yep.
Yeah. So my pick, and I'm going with another team that's sort of like the coach factor again. It's the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Because of Joey McGuire. I just think if we're gonna be rule guys, like you got to give his disciples some credit too, because that's who Joey McGuire is. Joey McGuire is a guy who was a high school coach who Rule gave an opportunity to when he was at Baylor. I believe that McGuire served as Rule's tight ends coach. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so he got hired at Texas Tech, and I believe this is his second year. Yes, this is his second year at Texas Tech. And they went 8-5 last year, and they were a fighting team. I watched a couple of different Texas Tech games, and it seemed like the game was never over with Texas Tech. They were always fighting till the very end. So offense, here's the big factor for me when I'm looking at a dark horse for who's going to win. Offense, they have, get this, 11 returning starters on offense. 11, all of them are returning on offense. And on defense, they only have 6 returning starters. But
wow.
that is a big factor.
That quarterback's one of them,
factor.
right?
The big, tall, black guy?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't even their quarterback. No, you watched the U of H game, huh?
I did.
Yeah, that's the one you're thinking of. He's U of H's quarterback this year. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
So he went out and beat Dana Holgerson, and Dana's like, I'm going to go get him.
Pretty much. No, they had another guy, Tyler Show Jr. Or Tyler Show. I thought that was his name. It's saying he's a senior. Like he's already got a kid.
Tyler So.
Yeah. No, okay. So 11 offensive returning starters. Let's go over their schedule real quick. So here's their out of conference. At Wyoming, which is never easy. Okay. Never easy. That's a good program. And they bring Oregon to Lubbock, and then they play Tarleton State. So Oregon is their big out of conference game. That'll be a good game. I'll watch that game. Okay, then in conference. So here's their away games. They go at West Virginia, at Baylor, at BYU, at Kansas, and at Texas. Those are their away games. Texas the last week of the year. Home games. They got Houston, Kansas State, TCU, and UCF.
So Houston has to play at Texas Tech twice, 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And one of them, they weren't even a part of the conference yet. Yeah, that's crazy. Which is crazy because, like, if there was rumblings of that type of thing, the general practice has been to cancel your home and homes. Like, Ohio State did that with Oregon. They had a home and home scheduled with Oregon, and they were supposed to have played this year, but they canceled it. And so that's one of the big smoke things as far as Oregon going to the Big Ten. But anyway, so yeah, they're to me, they're a very good pick for breakout team, dark horse, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so that's Big 12. We've done those 3. Yep. Now the Big 2. Let's start with the SEC.
Yep.
So the SEC. Let me get to my SEC section. That's the Big 10
SEC.
section. Okay,
yeah,
SEC
this is the one I'm having a lot of trouble with, honestly. One, just because they have so many good teams.
They do, yeah.
And it just depends. Like some years they have an up or down.
I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to bring this team up just because I want to talk about them. But they are a dark horse pick, okay? Texas A&M. Okay?
Oh,
Texas A&M. Texas A&M.
What?
Here's why I want to talk about them. Because of your reaction. That's exactly why I want to talk about them. No, Texas A&M is an interesting pick for dark horse because we're talking about a team that, yes, there was some attrition in that class, but 2 years ago they signed the most talented class in the history of college football. And it's not like they've been chumps at recruiting every other year. So like they're a loaded team. And now here's the big kicker. The big kicker is Jimbo is supposedly this offensive guru, but he's in his 6th year there. So he's supposedly an offensive guru, but by all accounts, he still teaches quarterbacks like things that they were teaching 20 years ago. So like release point, like 20 years ago, they wanted you to have a real high release point. These days, most quarterback coaches, as long as your release isn't too bad, will just tell you, we're not going to touch that. If you throw the ball fine, you throw the ball fine. We're going to keep you comfortable, because you have people like Patrick Mahomes who he can throw from all angles, right? I mean, like they don't want to limit people. So, and if you look at A&M's quarterbacks, they all have this like awkward sort of baseball style, like high release point. And so he's brought in the offensive guru of all offensive gurus, one of the greatest people in the history of college football. And I mean people. Bobby Petrino. so yeah. He hired an offensive coordinator, Bobby Petrino. If you know anything about Bobby Petrino has the rap sheet of all rap sheets when it comes to being an immoral jackass in positions of leadership, basically. Yeah. Like every school he's been at has ended in some sort of, crashing a motorcycle with his mistress on it, or, like he was in the NFL and you thought Urban Meyer was bad a couple years ago in the NFL. Look back at when Bobby Petrino was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Then you'll see what was really bad. Or hell, you look back at when Bill Callahan was the coach of the Raiders. but anyway, so Bobby Petrino. But here's the thing about Bobby Petrino.
Okay,
he's had some of the greatest offenses in college football history. Like we're talking about the guy who, when he came back to Louisville, that was when Lamar came and when they had the Lamar success. Like he's had success everywhere he's gone, generally on the field. And so it's sort of interesting. It's actually a very big parallel for what we dealt with at Nebraska last year, because Scott Frost, offensive guru, brings in Mark Whipple. And then like the first press conference, they're already on different pages. That's sort of what's happening here, where they had SEC Media Days last week, and Jimbo was asked about who he was going to let run their offense. Yeah. And he was like, he gave this vague answer that basically lets you think like, no, he's not letting Bobby Petrino run the offense. He's running the offense. So it's looking like it could be a dumpster fire. I'll say that. I think it's going to be a dumpster fire, but if for some reason everything aligns, they have the talent to get it done. That's my point.
All right. Sure. Yes. All right. You don't even have to look at Phil Steele. I don't think that's going to be
10 returning starters on offense, 10 returning starters on defense.
Dude, Jimbo is such a fraud, though.
I'm probably there with you. I'm just saying, if he's going to prove it, it's going to be this year. And if he does prove it, 10 returning starters on offense, 10 returning starters on defense, a top 10 roster in college football. Like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I wanted to talk about them, because there's a lot of material there, but also like you sort of have to like give it a little bit of a chance, because it could happen. I don't think A&M, look, I've always talked about A&M because there's a lot of A&M fans around here. And if there's one program in Texas that I don't have a whole lot of respect for as a football program, it's A&M. Now, as a school, I think it's a great school. It's relatively conservative. I like that. But it's as a football program, their fans walk around this city. I live in Houston. Their fans walk around this city like they're the greatest college football team to ever exist. And they've never won a national title in the modern era. So I don't really like A&M, but you got to pick them. So who's your pick?
Okay. I was going to say one team, but now I just had a thought because of divisions.
That's an important
no, screw it. I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Ooh. All right.
I know that they, have to replace Levis for sure. And apart from that, I have no clue. But Stoops is a good coach, and he's put some really good teams on there. And it would not shock me in the least if they took another step up this year and really, took off.
Bro, you picked a good team. This is a really
Yeah.
good dark horse SEC team because listen to this. They have 10 returning offensive starters, 5 returning on defense, but the one who's not returning is Will Levis, of course.
Levis, yeah.
But you know who their starting quarterback is?
No.
Devin
Who?
Leary.
Really?
He was at North Carolina State.
Yeah.
Devin Leary. Like, he's been a starter of a good team for
Yeah.
years. I mean, like, this guy's going to be good. So, dang, that's really interesting. So, Devin Leary. Oh, man. Guess who their running back is? Ray Davis. Straight up, that's his name.
No way. I thought you were about to say A.J. Allen.
No.
I don't even remember where he went, but
No. Ray Davis is their starting running back.
wow, that's funny.
Okay, so let's look at their schedule real quick just to see
All
if
right.
they have a chance. So, holy crap, they pulled a Michigan. Their out of conference is Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, and Akron.
So yeah,
They
they'll be
pulled a
3-0.
Michigan. Yeah, they'll be 3-0. Okay, so then their away games in conference: at Vanderbilt, at Georgia, at Mississippi State, at South Carolina, at Louisville. Their home games: Florida, Missouri, Tennessee, and Alabama. So right off the bat, one big thing that jumps right out to me is they play both Georgia and Alabama.
True.
And if you want to throw Tennessee in that mix, feel free. They play Tennessee too.
Yeah.
And Louisville, who Jeff Brom's their new coach. And we all know, like, look, Jeff Brom, I mean, Louisville, we'll see what kind of a program they are, but Jeff Brom is an offensive genius, okay? I'm willing to say that. With the personnel he had at Purdue and the production he got out of them,
Yeah.
like, he's a genius.
That's true. That's true.
So, really tough
I think
schedule.
but they get Alabama at home. I think the hardest game they're going to have to play is at Georgia.
The big factor, if you're going to point to one thing, if you're going to point to two factors, let's say, for why they are a dark horse, it's probably because they have 10 returning starters. Devin Leary is the only one that's not returning, but he's a really good quarterback. And Mark Stoops is now in his 11th year there as head coach. So he's got a program. It's established.
Yeah.
All right. So I picked A&M. You picked Kentucky.
All right.
All right.
Let's
so
go
let's
with
move
the
to Big Ten.
Biggie 10. All righty. This one is actually more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
For me.
Not for you? You know, okay. Go ahead.
So for my dark horse pick, I don't even need Phil Stills because I'm going to select the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Bro, like, how are they not everyone's dark horse pick? That's my point. Like, what I said about A&M with them just having a good roster no matter what can be applied not as talented, but the same logic can be applied to Nebraska because Nebraska has been recruiting just fine, if not really good, for where their position is in college football as far as their division and all that stuff.
Yeah.
New coach Matt Rule, we all know, we talk about this ad nauseum, but I don't know. I just think that Nebraska truly is the dark horse pick because if they do come through, all of a sudden you got a 6'4", 4'5" quarterback. You got a running back room that's really relatively deep. You got a defense that is returning quite a bit of starters. Look, I do want to pull up Phil Stills to get the exact numbers because let's see, Big Ten.
It's all right. After all the grief I gave you, I was going to do the same thing. So.
That's why I wanted to go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be my pick. Okay, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska. Okay. So we're returning 7 offensive starters, 8 defensive starters. We went 4-8 last year, but this is a new head coach. Jeff Sims is going to be the starting quarterback. Okay, here's schedule. Let's just real quick. We're not going to pick. Obviously, we'll do that later. But they got Colorado at Colorado, at Minnesota, the first games. And then away games in conference, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. You just look at our schedule, and it's like, okay, they don't play Ohio State. Mm-hmm. They get Michigan at home. Everything else in the Big Ten is very much, nobody really knows.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that it's sort of like a little bit tongue in cheek because it's a Nebraska podcast, but I don't know. I think Nebraska is poised to break out.
If you are going to pick a dark horse, that's what I was saying when I was looking at it because I was trying not to pick Nebraska.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to if you're doing this. And
There's other teams you could pick. There's other teams that could be dark horses.
Yeah, but
Not Wisconsin. You couldn't pick Wisconsin because they're picked favorite.
Yeah.
Couldn't pick. I mean, but you have to say this though. Are we talking about dark horse to win the conference or dark horse to win division? We're talking about to win the conference.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I picked Nebraska, because even if Wisconsin's really good, I'm sorry, they just haven't recruited to quite the same clip. And if they get into one of those games, they're not going to win, in my opinion. So, like, my point is, if Nebraska is swinging at full swing and they're actually good, they sort of have a lot of talent on their roster. And maybe they might, run the table in one of those games.
Yeah.
So that's why I say if but there are other teams you could pick. I mean, go ahead. I think I know who you're going to pick.
I was going to pick Nebraska.
No, now I know who you're going to pick. Who you're going to pick because I picked Nebraska.
Do we have to pick different teams?
I suppose, yeah.
We have to, because I was literally going to pick Nebraska.
A different team. I got a different team because we're talking about win the overall conference. I got a different team. Penn State, brother.
Okay. Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State is the obvious dark horse because, like, they're not one of the big three. They're really good, but they got a lot of returning talent. James Franklin's been there for a long time, and they got their new 5-star starting quarterback in Rent-A-Car, who will probably be there for 7 years, Drew Aller. But by all accounts, he's the most talented quarterback they've had since Franklin's been there, at least. So there's a lot of hype behind Penn State for that as well.
I think Franklin is a good football coach, but he will collapse when I just think that he makes some decisions sometimes game decisions that are like, what are you doing? Like Scott Frost kicking an onside kick. He does stuff like that sometimes. Not that bad, but he does stuff.
Well, you have a little more insight. You have a little more insight to that side of it because of Doug. Is that where that's coming from? Do you get a lot of intel from him?
Yeah. Pulse of the program type stuff.
Yes.
He's not a big believer, so I'm not.
Right. I mean, like, I got a Colorado buddy I call anytime there's news to get his opinion. But yeah, so Penn State would be another good pick. But
all right.
Yeah, let's move on to our last little topic. This will be fun. Yeah.
This we're not going to go really into schedule all that much. We can have discussions, but name of the game.
Well, you sort of have to. You sort of have to if you're going to talk about who's going to have the better record.
Yeah. No. You don't have to.
Okay. Go ahead.
But this is the name of the game. It's Team Buck 2. There's 2 teams. One of them, you have to pick one of them that is going to have the best record at the end of the year. Not are they going to win this, win that, win totals? Right. You don't have to know that. Just which one is going to have the best win total at the end of the year. And I thought a good place to start.
We're going to clip this and come back to it.
Absolutely. I thought a good place to start with this one would be with the new additions to the Big 12.
Okay.
So, and just one rule for this: the teams don't have to be in the same conference. Some of them just are, but they don't have to be aligned in the same conference between this team or that team. So it's just overall win total. And I think just because, we are fans of this team as well. So we're going to start off with Houston, first here in the Big 12. Houston or West Virginia?
Ooh, that is a good one. Okay, so let's see. We got West Virginia, Neil Brown. Let's see. They play Houston on October 12th. They're at Houston. They get Oklahoma, at TCU, at Baylor. What does Houston get? They were 8-5 last year, but AAC. Let's be specific.
Yeah.
They get at Texas Tech, at Kansas State, at Baylor, at UCF. They get Texas at home. They get Texas at home, and they get Oklahoma away. I'm going to go with West Virginia here, brother.
West Virginia? Okay,
yeah,
perfect. I'm going to go with Houston.
Yeah, I'm going to go with West Virginia because my reasoning is that this day and age, I'd rather play in Norman than play Texas at home, to be honest, because Oklahoma, Oklahoma is like, I won't get into like all the things that were said at Media Day by Brent Lunchables over there, but like, let's just put it this way. He's going to have to prove it to me now because you don't say stupid stuff like that without being good. And he said some stupid stuff And I don't think a whole lot of Oklahoma right now, which is funny because if you heard me after we got our ass whooped against them last year, I was crazy.
Outclassed is what you said.
Yes.
Class.
We were. I mean, we were outclassed.
Yeah.
We totally were, but it's because we gave up.
All right. So I'm with Houston and you're with West Virginia.
Yeah.
Speaking of Oklahoma, and I thought this was the best team to pair them with. Oklahoma or BYU?
Ooh. BYU. Always a good team. And here's the one thing about BYU that hardly anybody ever talks about when it comes to playing them. They're all like 25. You know what I mean? Like they all went on missions and their fourth year of college. If they're seniors, they're like 24 or 25.
Yeah.
They're all grown men. So you're basically playing a semi-pro team that's attached to a university, essentially, as far as ages go. But BYU or Oklahoma, because of what I just said and the rant I just went on with Oklahoma, I'm going to have to pick BYU here because BYU is sort of that team that you never really want to play because they're never bad. They're never the greatest team in college football, but they're never bad. And they can beat you if you're having an off week, pretty much no matter who you are.
Yeah.
So I think BYU might actually, based on the 4 teams that entered in, I think BYU might be that surprise team this year that just comes out of nowhere. And all of a sudden we got a Big 12 BYU contending for the they could have been a dark horse pick as well, in my opinion.
And I'm going to choose them as well. 100%. Oklahoma's going to have to prove it to me.
Yes. Keaton Slovis is BYU's starting quarterback, by the way. He was the quarterback who was at USC, and then he transferred to Pitt. And now he's at BYU. He's decent. Nebraska thought about getting him there for a little bit when Scott Frost had his hair on fire. We got Casey instead.
Yeah. All right. Next one, UCF or Kansas?
Oh, I gotta go with the fighting Leipold's here, man. They got their quarterback coming back. He was the lifeblood of their team.
He was.
I mean, if you just a team like Kansas, because it's a build, like it's gonna be a build. If you're the head coach at Kansas, you got to look at how they play more than wins and losses. They got to a bowl game last year, which is the first time not in program history, but in like almost 10 years. It was a long time since Kansas had been to a bowl game. Maybe since the 2007 season, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So he got them to a bowl game, and they're there in the bowl game playing Arkansas, who is a 6-6 SEC team that is freaking loaded. Like Arkansas being 6-6 was a result of their schedule. It's crazy. Their schedule, I mentioned this on the podcast, I think even. Their Arkansas schedule last year was nuts. But anyway, so they play Arkansas, and they get completely destroyed by them for the first 3 quarters, and then they almost come back. Like they scored like 35 points in the last quarter and a half and almost came back. But yeah, so I don't know. I think Leipold's a really good coach. I think Jalen Daniels is a really good quarterback, and I think they'll be good this year.
No, I still think they're going to be good, but with that, I am going to choose UCF. They're always solid. And I think Gus Malzahn, he's a good coach. Again, I don't think a great one, but he's a good coach, and his teams usually, at least win, I think like 8 or 9 games, right? Yeah. So and Kansas might have an uphill battle there, just to get to past that. That I think they're going to do.
And let's see, just real quick, UCF plays at Oklahoma. I always just look at the big teams who they're playing at Oklahoma, and what was the other team? Kansas. Kansas plays at Texas. Oh, yeah. So, and Kansas plays at Texas. So that might be the factor right there because I don't know. Maybe we're giving Texas too much credit, but I just have and I don't like Texas, so this is a bad feeling. I have a bad feeling.
Playing at Texas is always hard. It doesn't matter how good the team is.
But I have a bad feeling that Texas is going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So.
All right. So last one for the new Big 12 editions.
Okay.
Cincinnati or Wisconsin?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Who will have the better record between Cincinnati and Wisconsin? As much as I hate to say Wisconsin, I think I'm going to say Wisconsin because Cincinnati just lost their coach. Now, if you look at Cincinnati's history, it's actually weird. They're a successful program.
Yeah.
Like it really has not mattered who their head coach is. They've been pretty good pretty much the whole time since Brian Kelly. Cincinnati is a good program, but they are going to a new coach. So is Wisconsin, but Wisconsin has Cincinnati's coach, which is obviously why this is an interesting head-to-head. But so I don't know. As much as I hate to say it, I just think Wisconsin under Luke Fickell will have an average to pretty good year. So meaning between 7 and 9 wins.
All right.
Cincinnati, I don't think will do well going into the Big 12 this year. I just have a feeling
it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
I am really betting on the conversation that we've had multiple times about changing the entire culture of Wisconsin and just what their identity is, completely changing that. I think it's going to have a little bit more growing pains than other people think it will.
Yeah, totally.
And, again, we know nothing. But I think that it's going to be a lot more of a growing pains. And I think Cincinnati just has a little bit more of a culture of winning more, not frequently, more
for who they are.
For who they are,
a more consistent, really good team. For who they are. Like Wisconsin is consistently pretty good, but Wisconsin and all their fans expect to be in the title for the Big Ten or winning the title for the Big Ten. So that's not who they are. So yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, moving on. So these are two big two. Alabama or Ohio State?
This is a good one and a tough one because they're both going through lots of transition. They're both have a new starting quarterback. So I think what it comes down to is, for me at least, is who do you trust more at coach? and for me, it's got to be Nick Saban, and I think for most people, it's got to be Nick Saban. Nick Saban just has a track record of he's a heavyweight fighter. You're not going to put him out for very long. If he gets knocked out, he's going to come back the next fight and knock you out. He and now this will be the third year of them not winning the title. And so they got something to prove. So in Alabama with something to prove is a little bit scary to me, especially considering the fact that he hinted at SEC Media Days that they were going to go away a little bit from the past century flying high sort of game plan that they've had centered around people like Bryce Williams and Tua. Well, Bryce Williams is a whole different animal actually, but
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. Yeah. Did I say Bryce Williams?
You combine Caleb Williams and Bryce Young.
I did. Anyway, I just think an Alabama coming out looking like 2009 with a stacked running back room, trying to pound the freaking rock, is a bit of a scary proposition in my opinion. So I gotta go with Alabama here, but Ohio State is another team that I think could be a title contender. Both these teams,
I know. That's why it's
if
hard.
I had to bet on a team that has good odds that would make me some money to win the title right now, it would either be Alabama or Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but I'm going to choose Alabama as well. So we're on consensus for that. Yeah. All right. So here's an interesting one, and I think I know what you're going to pick: Cal or Colorado.
Bro, that is, it's funny. I laugh at first because it's like, that's obscure, but no, like they're sort of on the same level. So it really is. I mean, what was Cal's record last year? Let me look at that real quick. Cal's record last year, the Cal Golden Bears. They had to have been bad, I'm sure. Oh yeah, 4-8. Okay, so I don't want to say it's an easy pick because there's so much uncertainty around Colorado. It's not an easy pick, but Cal's win record last year quadrupled Colorado's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and there's a sense of
Cal, right?
Yeah, but there's a sense of and there's also a sense of knowing how to win. There's something that that Prime is going to have to get over, and it's a culture of losing, and that sometimes takes a little while to beat and come on the other side, as we know as Nebraska fans. So yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, because you don't know what Colorado's going to look like. It is a different team, but there's also a lot of pieces that were still there. We haven't even seen their line play because they didn't play in spring ball. So you kind of have to go with Cal, right?
Yeah, you do.
All right.
You do. I mean, Colorado, look, we're talking about they got rid of 72 players on their roster and added 48.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is that? That doesn't add up, right? Well, it's true. It doesn't add up. They're undermanned right now.
Yeah.
But it's a process. So that's why I'm sort of glad we're getting Colorado this year. I could be eating my words with that, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
All right, next one. Tennessee or Michigan?
Ooh, that's a good one too. You know, because I was sitting here thinking about who I would think would make the playoff, because that's the last topic we're going to touch. But I think that Michigan is poised for a down year.
I agree.
Now, I think that this is a hilariously different opponent or a different opinion than pretty much everybody in the media has, because we're talking about a team in Michigan that has, let's see, they have Big Ten, Michigan. They have 8 returning starters on offense, 7 returning starters on defense. So pretty good returning production. They were 13-1 last year. They got a coach in their 9th year. They have a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, who's very skilled. They have a tandem at running back in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, which I've heard from multiple coaches that they actually think Donovan Edwards is better skill-wise than Blake Corum. So there's a lot there, and they play a patty cake schedule. Eastern Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green as their first. Matter of fact, Jim Harbaugh is getting suspended for his first 4 games. We'll touch on that. But East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers as their first 4 games. Nebraska is going to be the first game where Jim Harbaugh is back. I don't know. Here's why I think Michigan is poised for a down year. Because with the freaking private jet photo op last year, with Jim Harbaugh going to interview for the Vikings job, it just screams you're not allowed to have winning seasons after that. You're not allowed to win a national title after that. Like, come on. Your coach is halfway out the door by all accounts. The dude, anytime he would have already gone to the NFL if he got an opportunity. By the way, the Vikings didn't even offer him the job. They just interviewed him for it. So we're talking about a guy who would go to the NFL at first chance if he had the opportunity. And I don't know. That just doesn't. It's not building confidence for me. Tennessee, on the other hand, they're building. They were 10-2 last year. They have a lot of returning production. Not their starting quarterback, but they do have some returning production.
Yeah.
And I don't know. His look doesn't inspire confidence, but I think Josh Heupel's a good coach.
All right.
And 11-2 last year.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Gru, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. 3rd year at the position. Joe Milton as their starting quarterback. They could be either really good this year or really bad.
Yeah,
that's how I see Tennessee. And
I think he's still going to build. Is reason I'm going with Tennessee. The dark horse,
Screw it. I'm going with Tennessee.
Me too. All right. So let's fire. We've already talked about some of these teams. So let's just fire off these really quick. Penn State or Iowa?
Penn State.
Same.
Penn State. Yeah.
Texas
You'll see when we talk about the playoff. Huh? Texas or
Kansas State?
Texas.
All right, I'm going to go with Kansas State. All right, TCU or Purdue?
TCU.
TCU? All right.
Yeah. Ryan Walters, new coach. Who are you going with?
Purdue.
Okay.
I think TCU is going to take a major. They got. If you just look at their games last year, they came back like they. They shouldn't have been in the position that they were in at the end of the year. It's hard to say that when they were, but they got lucky a lot too. Down.
So that I say, welcome to Big 12 football. I mean, so many Big 12 games were decided between like 3 points last year.
True. I think they're gonna take it because Duggan is gone. That dude was a baller.
He was good. He was.
Northwestern or Vanderbilt? I know some of these are hard, right?
Yeah, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Vanderbilt. For sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Northwestern, but I'm gonna go with them too.
Yeah, because if they have 3 wins, I don't see Northwestern getting 3 wins.
Yeah, and we're not gonna go into this one too much, but I thought this was a good matchup. Nebraska or South Carolina?
That is a good matchup. Very similar positions as far as totem pole. South Carolina, I would say, is over because they've had bowls and stuff. But I'm gonna go with Nebraska because of the league that South Carolina plays in.
Okay. Same. I can't pick against the Huskers. Georgia or USC?
USC.
Really? I was gonna choose
because
them.
we haven't
Wow.
talked about the playoff yet, and once you see my teams, you'll understand.
Oh shoot, that's right. We're doing that. I need to do that. Oregon State or Michigan State? I think I know who you're picking.
Yeah, Oregon State. I mean, I just think that Michigan State goes to Washington, I believe, next year, or Washington comes home. It's like the second game of the year for Michigan State. And I just think Washington's a really damn good football team. And I think they're going to beat the crap out of Michigan State. And right off the bat, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Tucker.
Fair.
Fair. So
last one, one of them is my alma mater, Liberty, or Illinois. One of the reasons I chose Liberty is they're now in Conference USA. It's their first year there.
What teams do they play? Do you know any off the top of your head?
No.
Are they going to be good?
They have some returning production. Probably not, but we'll see.
Find their page.
Yeah, you can go and find that. I think I know who I'm gonna pick, but because we've already talked about Illinois too.
Yeah, Illinois is good, man. Yeah, I think they're a solid program, but they play in a harder league.
They play in a harder league. Yeah,
so
that's why I thought it was interesting.
That's my point. So it's like, I don't know. I think you got to go with Liberty, just because Liberty could be a decent team and bust out a 9 or 10 win season pretty easily in a league like that.
Yeah. All right. Cool. We have a lot of alignment, but we do have some that are different. So perfect. Yep. It's a good mix.
Perfect. Oh, you got them written down too.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Nice.
I wrote them down and I put our names by them. So easy look.
This has been the longest show we've ever done, but it's great.
Yeah.
We've been engaged. We've had a lot of good conversation, but we have one last topic we need to touch on just to stick the landing and bring it home. Who do we think makes the playoff? This is the last year of the 14 playoff, and there's some pretty interesting dark horse teams you could sort of pick. I'm not asking for a dark horse team. You could pick the ones everyone thinks if you really want. But for me, and I'll go in order just because I want to seed them as well. For me, if I'm going to go in order, I'm going to go this. Alabama, I think that they're just poised to have that year, number one. Then Penn State.
Interesting.
Penn State.
Right.
I think Penn State has a weird year where they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They pull off the upsets and beat Michigan and Ohio State. I believe, yeah, and they win the conference. Third, Ohio State. So I would have it being Penn State and Ohio State as 2 and 3, and then fourth, USC. I think they'll get a stupid loss, but I think they'll win the conference. Okay. So with all that being said, then you have Georgia on the outside in having 1 or 2 losses, probably one loss, and getting sort of screwed because Alabama's undefeated.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it'd be, and I think that would be a really fun and interesting playoff.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's where I'm at. Definitely Alabama. I think they've been shut out. What now? 2 years? Well, no, they just got shut out last year, but they haven't gotten a championship in a while. They're going to be hungry. They're not being talked about as much. Nick Saban is a great coach. I would be surprised if they didn't make it. Here's where I'm going to kind of Liberty. No, I'm kidding. Let's go with Ohio State as well. Ryan Day's a good coach. They have so much talent, and their coach isn't a distraction like Harbaugh is.
So Alabama at 1, Ohio State at 2.
I'm not going to seed them, but yeah, just Alabama, Ohio State. It's hard to pick a Big 12 team because they always screw it up for themselves.
Yeah, that's why I didn't.
Yeah. Let's go with Tennessee.
Okay.
And I almost said Nebraska, just because what if?
3. It's that. No, you only picked 2. So 2 SEC teams now.
Screw it. I'll pick Texas.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So this could end up being a total Desmond Howard situation. It's funny, like right before the season started, they had like a graphic, and Desmond Howard's like, "Here's my playoff teams," and it was like Penn State. It was like Penn State, Tennessee. Yeah. It was like no team that was even close, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
A&M.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Texas.
Yep.
And I have Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, and USC.
All right.
I think those are good picks. We're gonna make some money.
Perfect.
Yeah. Y'all need to listen to us if y'all are trying to make money, because we know what we're talking about. I have Phil Stills right here.
We've never lost a bet ever.
Never. Ever. Also,
definitely.
try to say Phil Steele's name.
Phil Steele.
Phil Steele. Feel Steele.
Feel Steele.
Feel Steele. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard name to say. But yeah, you should follow us on Twitter at Husker Corner, and go check out our Instagram as well, Cornhusker Corner. And subscribe and like to the podcast. Give us a like, helps us out. And yeah, you got anything else that you wanted to talk about for the day? Anything that you want to stick the landing with? Anything like that?
No. Good.
No movies you want to bring up at the end here?
No, I haven't seen any yet.
No. Yeah, we're both gonna see Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer's here soon. So
while we're here, I might as well talk. We should probably do a mid camp. We should probably do a mid camp, like. That's when we do our overall season preview for the Nebraska.
Yeah, that's when we're going to do them.
And then right before the Minnesota game, that's when we'll do our game preview.
Yeah.
Yep. But all right, subscribe and like, follow us on Twitter and all the stuff. And yeah.
Thanks
for watching.
Remember that there's no place like
this podcast.
This podcast.